Good morning, Jax. How are you today?
So good, Wendy. How are you today?
Doing good, doing good. The sun is shining, so I'm happy.
Right? It's just something about that sun brings out the good in us.
Yes, absolutely. We need it. Well,
Vitamin
welcome
D.
back, everybody. It's episode 5 of Putting the Field Back in Tuesday.
And we were on a roll here, 5 episodes in, and topics get better and better. I feel like we're finding our voice more and more. We're really learning to take control of these conversations and trying not to get off the deep end and less needing to reel it in.
Exactly. I mean, that's okay once in a while, but yeah, we got her.
We got her.
Well, so welcome to our podcast. We'll just do a quick little overview. Putting the Field Back in Tuesday, we're sort of dedicated to inner growth and self-improvement. And, we explore spirituality and mindfulness and positivity and just create a safe space to explore feelings and validate them and maybe provide a little unique perspective and ideas on embracing our true selves. So we are your hosts. I'm Wendy.
And I'm JC, aka Jackson.
So, well, here we go. I'm so excited. Episode 5. Love it.
Awesome. So, Wendy, one thing we wanted to do with our podcast for the viewers listening is that basically the whole idea around putting the feel back in Tuesday, we first started out kind of the feels were the topics for the day, but a great angle Wendy had so we can all get to know each other a little better is that what bringing our feel to our Tuesday is basically the highlight of last week and something we wanted to share with each other and share with the audience. So, what's been your highlight and what's bringing the feel to your Tuesday, Wendy?
Well, so for this week, my feel is just proud of some of the acknowledgement I've been doing. Just it's been a busy week, whichever with work and schedule, and appointments, some things going on, and just being able to sort of recognize some self-care. So I made sure I took time. I got a haircut.
Oh, beautiful.
And there's
Beautiful.
there's nothing like walking away from that heap on the floor. Like you realize you need the haircut, but it's not until you see that heap that you understand the level that you needed it.
Right?
So yeah, just doing that. I went and seen some friends in the city I haven't seen, in a long time that are really good friends. And it is always amazing to me when you sit there and you're like, it hasn't been a year. You live in an 18-minute drive from my house. It has been a year. In fact, it's been more, and so, I was tired, but you're like, no, gonna go and you got to take this time. And then when you're there, it feels good and you're reminded, you know, why you're there and who they are. And so yeah, I just made sure to do some self-care. I did a few creative things. I might have been doing some coloring.
Oh,
So yeah, just self-care. I'm proud of my little bit of self-care. I mean, still busy. I couldn't do everything I wanted, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did that.
wonderful. That's a lot of soul food. So that's awesome. Especially not to get right into one of our topics later today, but that's going to be a big shine on one of our topics, which we wanted to touch a little into seasonal depression. So
Yeah.
everything you did there is something that, even if it momentarily can help pull us out of that winter funk and reconnect with the world. I love that. What a great week for you, Wendy.
Yeah, I think I did pretty good. What's putting the feel on your Tuesday?
Oh gosh, a couple things this week, Wendy. One, we
Yeah.
finally got to do the gender reveal. So we are having a baby boy, baby Easton, due date July the 10th. And if some of you followed me in my journey across Canada, you know that Tammy from St. Leonard, New Brunswick, at her yarn store, L'Artisan, she made little Brunswick mascots for my journey, which ended up going in the back of my backpack. And I trekked across all of Canada with him in my backpack, and kind of just became a thing synonymous with me. Was there's Cross Canada Jax and there's Brunswick, and there was other characters made like Leonard the Sloth, but they even made Bailey, my girlfriend, her own pink moose, and now we've got a little baby Brunswick. So So awesome. And
Congratulations.
oh,
Baby boy,
thank you, Wendy.
congratulations.
I know I'm already thinking like, okay, I'm gonna get him on some hockey skates at 6 months and play some mini sticks and all the good jazz that comes around it. But so that was amazing. We got to finally announce the gender. That was eating me up inside. I'm such an open book, and so holding that in for 5 months was slowly dwindling me down, but it's nice. It's out in the world. And so, other than the gender reveal, another exciting thing that's putting the feel in my Tuesday is there's someone I very much admire and I guess even look up to in a way. And her name is Amber Schramm. She's a two-time cancer survivor and probably the most positive, outgoing, just jovial person you can joke around with about anything person. And that amazing lady is going to be on our podcast next Tuesday, our very first guest. So we'll get to dive into the mind of a two-time cancer survivor. I mean, gosh, I'm not going to say too much because I've got to sit down with her and hear her story. But to be face to face with the potential of losing your life twice and to just be so powerful in the midst of it all. It's to me that's so inspiring. And that's why when I was walking across Canada and I kept saying what I'm doing every day is nothing even close to compared to the people that are going to their chemotherapy or radiation or whatever treatments they're doing. They're doing the real tough heavy lifting, and I guarantee anyone going through those treatments would be like, actually, I'll walk across Canada rather than have cancer. So, yeah, unbelievable. And I just cannot wait to get to connect with Amber next week for our very first guest.
I think that's going to be fantastic. I'm super excited for that too. That's awesome. Well, those are good feels to have on a Tuesday. I love it.
Great vibes all around. So, without further ado, one of the topics we wanted to touch on this week was actually a comment we got on episode 2. Amazing
Yep.
lady, her name is Melissa. Actually, was interested me why she commented this because she's such a loving person. But somewhere deep down, her question was, how do I turn my fear into love? And that one got me thinking all week because I was like, turning fear into love, like what does that truly mean and entail? Because it's just such a, I guess the question was broad, but there's a lot of ways you can perceive it. So, Wendy, I don't know if you wanted to kick us off about how you viewed that and like what are your like what comes to you when you hear that sentence? How do I turn fear into love?
Well, the biggest thing I think is changing the script a little bit on the fear and not letting it sort of take over the way you think about it and changing the script and sort of being able to accept it. It leaves room because fear takes up a lot of room. So once you start to be able to have the power over the fear a little bit, it sort of opens up space to bring other things in. And love should be, at the core of everything. So, that's when we say we're into love, right? It leaves room to bring that love in because that's an age old thing. Fear versus love versus fear.
Yeah, maybe it's just not for my time and I haven't got to learn as much about it. So I'm super interested in that one today. I wanted to backtrack a bit. My apologies, everybody. Completely skipped over our weekly intention and our tarot card for the day. So before we dive into Melissa's comment, I apologize, you guys, if that's we're going a little back and forth, but we're trying to get a new flow brought to our podcast every week. We try to improve. So some of the new flow you might be noticing is you guys will get to know a little bit more about Wendy and I as we're going to share personal details about our weeks and kind of what brings us the good vibes of that week, and then we'll do our weekly intention, and then we'll get into our two or three heavier topics. So my apologies, guys. Wendy's now gonna read our weekly intention.
Okay, we got her. So I did the little shuffle. We got reflection this week. We got to change. So here we go.
So one
Take.
sec, Wendy.
Oh,
Before
nope.
you get into this one, this is no longer a gratitude card.
No, they're all gratitude. It's just
Okay.
one. There's three different kinds in the deck. There's an affirmation, an inspiration, and a reflection.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
today we are reflecting.
Get our
So look
notebooks
at
out, guys. Get your
yeah,
notebook.
you ready? You ready? Yeah, we should say that at the beginning too. Everybody grab a notebook, hit pause, go get your pen, a notebook if you need today. So here we go. Ready? Take time today to show gratitude for those who have contributed to your self well-being and survival. No one thrives on their own. We are all connected.
One more time, Wendy.
You bet. Take time today to show gratitude for those who have contributed to your well-being and survival. No one thrives on their own. We are all connected.
Wow, that one's hitting me deep. Love that.
And then the little proverb on the top, it's just a little proverb. It just says, when eating fruit, remember the ones who planted the tree.
Ah, amazing.
Boom.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Love that.
Yeah.
That is actually, funnily enough, one of my life's philosophies. I definitely value relationships and connections
Yeah.
absolutely at the top of my value list. Because you're you're nobody without the people surrounding you. You're the sum of the four people you hang around.
Yep.
And if you surround yourself with good people, then it's all going to bounce off each other and you're all going to grow and build amongst each other. And if you surround yourself with, I don't want to say the word losers because I don't like having
Negativity.
negative terms, but if you
Yeah.
surround yourself with people that have no purpose and self-improvement, then you're gonna probably fall into that path. Well, I don't need to be better. None of my friends are being better. We can all just stay the same together.
Mhm.
Love that.
Yeah. And I mean, most of us, I think a lot of us have people who contributed to our well-being as well, or survival. When there are times we have been very down, I'm sure everybody has. Um, Hopefully you've had someone there to help hold you, pick you up, um, just give you as much love as they can. And it is important to, not necessarily in the time because you've got your own thing going on, but it's important to make sure you go back and once in a while tell those people what they've done, what they mean, and the importance in the role. Um, yeah, that's what I take from that one for sure, because we are all connected and nobody thrives on their own, even if people contribute just a tiny bit or a lot. Either way, we're all in it.
And absolutely, one more thing I want to say, because with my cross Canada run, that's one thing I kind of learned along the way. It wasn't about the awareness. Well, it was really about the awareness for cancer research and the funds to be raised. But what it really came down to was the people you met along the way. And those are people I still have in my life and cherish because even those little contributions into my journey just made such a huge difference. So someone like you, now we're literally making a podcast together. And then
Yeah.
Darian Ray, the illustrator for my book, now we're working on this huge book project together for cancer research. So that's why I just value relationships so high because I just think if you're just trying to be selfish and just do everything for yourself, then at the end of the day, those people that contribute to your well-being aren't going to want to keep contributing to your well-being. They'll be like, well, this guy, we contribute to him, but we get nothing back. He's just taking all our energy, all our time, all
Yeah.
our resources, and what are we getting from him? So I love
Yeah.
that community. Everyone help each other. If this is your strength, you do that. And if that's your strength, you do that. And if all of us come together with our um, utilizing each other's strengths and purpose, then
Mhm.
you create these amazing environments and communities and groups. So yeah, I'm grateful for all the people I met along my journey and I honestly that one just resonated so well with me because I feel like I lived that and that's literally how this
Yeah.
podcast came to be.
Yeah. And you'll, of course, everybody in your life is going to help contribute to your well-being different ways because of their own strengths. So that's what makes it. It sounds like you did your homework from last week with your values and
Oh yeah.
knowing what's number one. I love it. You did the homework. And I think that's also easy for you just connecting it to your journey because you're so good with names and sort of remembering the people. Even if it's not people that you got to physically meet, you did the best you could in the chat. And now that you're still going live but not walking, you can pay closer attention, but you remember those names still, and you remember a tiny detail about what somebody maybe went through. So, you've got lots of connection on different levels, which is, I think it's fantastic.
And just a little side note, but the one of the main reasons I try to remember everyone's names is I've heard kind of the saying, everyone's favorite word in the dictionary is their name. And so the more you can use people's like address people by name, like
Mhm.
it just adds a deeper level of connection. You're if I like so, most people don't remember my name, but if it's someone I've met before and I always like try to remember their name because I don't know, like life is short in a way, and everyone you meet along the way, I just think it's so cool. Like I just think living and life and the world is just so cool. We're all just a single character. We know is what's in our mind, and then you go out and you can meet someone who might have 35 years in their life and their own personal experiences, and they have stuff to share about their journey and their life. And yeah, I just think it's so cool to meet other quote unquote characters in this game of life because yeah, before we know it, it's gonna be over. And
Mhm.
it's literally about the people that you meet and contributed to your well-being along the way. So
Yeah.
just love
Yeah.
that. So
And
that was just
even,
my little side tangent about
yeah.
names and always trying to remember people's names because it just
Yeah.
puts you in a different place when someone remembers your name. You're like, you remember me? Like maybe in their head they're like, I'm a
Yes.
nobody. Like, why would he remember me? But then leaves you away, you leave that conversation feeling good. Like, oh wow, there are good people out there.
Yeah. And all these connections, even friendships that we've had in our own lives since we were little, they all began generally with an introduction. Hi, how are you? This is my name. That's your name. And so, you just never know what connection you're going to make with somebody when you meet them and introduce yourself. And that was one thing that I remember just being super impressed with. No matter who was walking up to you with whatever energy, and they know who you are. They came running to find you because you just walked past their house, yet you're still, I'm Jackson. And it was just so refreshing to watch. And that's what we need to do, right? All these people that contribute to our well-being, no matter what relationships we've had with them. Yeah. Thank them, remember them, be there for them, return that favor. That's not on the card, but return the favor, also be there for their well-being when they need it. Yeah.
Right? Like, as much as like people could put me on a pedestal when I was doing that mission, I fully always just keep myself not on the pedestal. I'm amongst everyone else. I was the vessel that was doing the legwork, but
Right.
everyone else that came around me was equally as important to the mission. So I
Yeah.
was just one guy amongst the army we had created to find a cure. So
That's
always gotta
right.
stay humble at the end of the day.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're not better than nobody. Even like, yeah, sometimes we get these jobs and we think we have status and we just think, well, I'm in this class and that must mean that I have all these belongings and this job title, that I'm better than other people that don't have my job title and don't have these belongings. Like what I love about being able to curate your own life is I have friends that have millions of dollars in the bank, and I also have friends that are living off welfare paycheck to paycheck. The one thing they all have in common though is they have big, genuine hearts, and they just
Hmm.
want to spread kindness.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
They
most
have.
important thing. They
Yeah.
one of the most cheesy cliche saying is the best things in life are free.
Mm.
And that's what I try to approach. I'm such a chatty Cathy when I go out into the public. I always think of like a sly remark to try and break the ice with someone. And
Yeah.
then yeah, and then I'm not looking to gain anything from them other than the free things, like maybe laughter, joy,
Mhm.
whatever it might be. And so, I just love it. The best things in life are free, and not looking to get anything from anyone other than the free things. You just meet some awesome people and cr create some awesome stories.
100%. And if you walk up without, expectations from last week, then yeah, you're just open.
Okay, so now to circle back from all of those topics, let's get back into some of the topics we had actually planned for today, which was to address the fear to love. So you had touched a bit on it earlier at the start before kind of got jimble jambled in our schedule. But I guess the way I had seen it, and I think you have a way more elaborate and different angles of seeing it, but I was kind of pondering it and trying to find out what that really meant to me and see what I could come of it. So the fear to love, and it kind of brought me back to um earlier in my 20s, from like 20 to 23. I know it's not old, um and I felt like on some of my relationships in my personal life, I held back giving my full love and my full heart to people because you have that fear that if you give your whole heart away, they have the ability to break it, whether that's a friend or a girlfriend or whatever. It doesn't need to be like a life partner in to be specific, but I would hold back some of that love out of fear of, you know, giving your heart away and then they can break it and shatter it into a million pieces because you're making yourself vulnerable. But I almost then came to the conclusion that it's not good to live in fear just because you're afraid of being hurt, and that putting yourself fully out there, fully vulnerable to be hurt, um, you're going to be hurt no matter what in life. So just getting over that fear and just diving fully into that love and accepting that being hurt is an outcome to that. I just find that's where I was able to let go of that fear and just like, if I get hurt, I get hurt. But that's not going to stop me from putting the best and most amazing version of myself out into the world. And so that's kind of what I chalked up fear to love to be. And it might not need to only be within relationships, but that's kind of where it felt to me, which was holding back parts of myself out of fear of just it not being reciprocated. But I think that's a slippery slope to go down because then you're never going to be your true, authentic, best version of yourself.
Yeah, and to a certain degree, you're depriving. I mean, everybody's different, right? But to a certain degree, you're depriving, to avoid sadness is to avoid love. And that's everything. Not just in relationships, right? When we try and protect ourselves from, not being angry or sad or whatever it is, you are a lot of people, maybe there's lots of ways it just sort of came to me to break that down, but a lot of people hear the word love and they're just like, they think of relationships and marriage or whatever that might be. But there's just so many different levels of it. Like you said, it can apply to friendship or relationships. Our pets, we can have love towards objects or connections to things, and just avoiding, in your example there, avoiding being hurt also deprives you of the love that you could experience in the meantime, because maybe that relationship didn't work and that was for your highest good.
Right? And like, and when you hold back that love to no matter who or what it is,
Yeah,
you kind of get what you put out into the universe. So maybe holding back that love is then making the other person hold back their love. And if sometimes there's no shame in being the first one to put something out there, because it comes back to that fear of like, well, will it be reciprocated? And even if it's not, I guess it's also letting go of the fear of, well, if I put myself fully out there and I'm judged, that fear of being judged, then you're never gonna get to like the true energies that you want back from it.
exactly. Exactly. And that's it. Like it's I was sort of saying making more room for love, positivity to come in, and leaving less room for the fear because it does take up so much room. So it's getting a little bit of power and control, if you can, over that fear, and maybe changing the script about fear and what it means for you, and breaking down why the fear's there.
And I think it goes back to one of our earlier chats where it's that fear of taking up space and feeling like
Mm,
you're not gonna be like, oh, I shouldn't go and give all my love. And love you can give to so many different people, but like, oh, maybe I'll hold back because actually don't want to take up any of their space, time, and energy. So I'm just gonna be in my own small bubble, boxed in. And it's just that fear is it's got such a chokehold on us. And it's just like, it all comes back to all these things we talked about, expectations. And, if you just don't have any expectations with the love and the good you're putting out into the world, then there's no fear around it because there's no expectation attached to it. There's no attachment to your love. It's just, this is me. I'm a loving person. I'm going to put as much of it into the world. Some people will reciprocate. Some people are going to find it super weird, and
yeah.
others, and that's fine. Like, those are the people that are scary to love. I feel like the ones that don't reciprocate, and then they kind of turn us
Mm.
off thinking, well, if they didn't really reciprocate it, no one else probably will. And maybe I'm not as good of a person as I thought. And then you get in your own head. But yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be that baseline, but it can also go a little deeper if people are really having a fear, and sometimes fear can affect us physically. And so then I think the bigger the fear, if it starts to affect you physically, a lot more people I think really sort of shut down when that happens, because fears can be low doses of anxiety, worriness, unhappiness, anger. Like fear can sort of bring a lot of that in. So if if I can offer a little bit of a few things, if you are feeling bigger fear, I think that might be a little bit more paralyzing, and you're having trouble figuring out where to be able to make room for the love. Um One thing to do is you can sort of, if like let's say it's a daunting task that's causing you this fear. It's there's a daunting task that you're not, and there's a big issue with it and you're really feeling it. When you sit down and think about this task or the thing that's bringing on your fear, where do you feel that in your body? Like, you're going
Mm.
to feel that somewhere in your body. Is there a feeling or words or memories that are coming up with that? Write it down, because that's a level of facing the fear a little bit. You're sort of putting a name to it. And once you maybe figure out where that comes from a little bit, it maybe helps you accept the fear. Um, I mean, it's never going to get rid of it, but if you sort of neutralize it by trying to make sense of it and sort of become friends with it a little bit, it can help. Um, and then once you acknowledge the role the fear plays, it just becomes less scary. You're taking control of it. And then as you do that, you naturally just feel less fear and more, you've made sense of it a tiny bit. And then it starts to just leave room for other stuff, because you don't have the same feeling about the fear, and you connect to the fear in a different way because you've asked those questions and sort of become one with it.
I love it. And love when you mentioned the anxieties there, because even like the strongest people have fear and anxieties. I know for a fact when I was, running across Canada, as much of a brave face I put on, there's always those fears and anxieties at the back of your mind. But I
Yeah.
think one thing that's the complete counter opposite of fear is bravery. And, all of these emotions and feelings we talk about, as much as like I always say, they're not tangible objects, but they can be put out into the universe and the world and they can be felt.
Yeah.
And when you just lead with bravery and love instead of like fear and hate, people can like feel that. They can feel what
Mhm.
you're putting out there. And even if you have fear, anxiety, just face it head on with bravery, but with no expected outcome. Just be brave, face it, and then if it's not going to kill you, it's going to make you stronger. So if let's say you get I would say 80% of the time you'll get an outcome you're hoping for that'll actually leave you feeling good. But there's that 20% of the time that I think turns us off, a lot of us off, is that rejection and the anxiety and just, yeah, the judgment that comes along with
Mm.
it. And it's hard to let go of that, when it's so hard to let go of that. And I guess that all comes down to ego, and so
Mhm.
hard to let go of that ego. Because at the end of the day, I like to think like, will something matter 500 million years from now? Then it shouldn't matter to me right now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But some of us, we get so up in our heads and think, that small action we just did, and now millions of people are gonna know, and now I'm so embarrassed. I'm such an embarrassing person. What's
Right.
wrong with me? And then we spiral out of control. Like,
Yeah.
I'll even have takeaways where I'll like be talking to someone and maybe I'll be like, oh, maybe I was a bit weird. But then I have to just remember, like, you know what? That's one person. One day I'm not gonna be here, and is that interaction really gonna matter? No. Do I have people that love me and care about me and support me and cherish me? I do. And now I'm actually going to just focus on that and them and leave that weird, embarrassing interaction behind.
Exactly. And part of that is, the other person might not have thought it was, if that's in your head. So you've sort of taken control of your thought, right? And misdirected it and been like, no, I'm going to go over here. And then that other person might not have even thought of it at all. And so you're good to go. The more attention we give fear, I mean, any emotion, but because we're talking about that, the more attention we give the fear, the louder it's going to get. And so why
Mhm.
not see if we can grab control of it just a little bit and neutralize it a little bit, see if we can figure out where it's coming from. Is there some stuff for us to let go of? Is there things we have to embrace? Like once you start to break the fear down a tiny bit, those things will sort of come up for you naturally. But I also think that there's some things that you can do in your day that will also help you leave room for more love to come in, even if there isn't a lot of strong fear going on. But just starting your day off with love, some sort of intention, or exercise or prayer or meditation. Leave yourself an I love you note on the mirror. Like, who cares? Just find a little way to start the day off with love, and you've already set the tone.
Oh gosh, so true. So
Yeah.
true. I know like the days where I wake up and I'm grateful are my best
Mm.
days. The days you wake up and
Yeah.
you're already in a bad mood. I mean, it does set the tone for the day. It does. It really does. So maybe we could segue now. It's kind of our last topic, but it actually kind of works here. So you had said the more attention you give that fear, the more power you give to it.
Hmm.
And one of the reflections I had over the week was basically that. It was kind of centered. I had felt a lot of negativity the last week. And, as a coping mechanism, you want to vent and kind of vent out your feelings, get it out. It
Yep.
feels good. But then I found as I was venting those negative feelings, it was just bringing in more negativity. And so I came to the conclusion that almost like just letting it go. I was like, you know what? Every time I try to vent about how negative people have been lately towards me and Bailey, it would come back twofold. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what the heck? Like, you would think that you talking about and explaining to people how rude and hurtful it is that their negativity can affect other people, it didn't seem to, like, I thought, talking about it would lead to others being compassionate and like be like, okay, like these guys haven't done nothing wrong, so why would we continue to be negative? But then I guess the more I was talking about like how negative people were being, it was like harboring all the negative energy, and then all those negative people were coming around and being
Yeah.
negative. And then the moment I just let it go, I didn't need anyone to hear my story. I just was like, you know what? If people are gonna be people, people are gonna try and tear you down. It's just a part of life. And I'm just like, I'm not even gonna talk about it, give it my attention, give it any of my time of day. And if you're negative, block and move on. I'm not even gonna give that energy any power. And then since then, it's been smooth
Yeah.
sailings again. So sometimes we do get wrapped up, and maybe you want
Mhm.
people to, I don't know, I didn't even need anyone to feel bad for me. It was just like, this is what's happening, guys. The first time we're experiencing this in our entire year of
Mhm.
a community.
Yeah.
Like, it was an interesting phenomenon. And the more I
Yeah.
talked about it, the more it was happening. And then I was just one night, I was like, this isn't working. Let's try something new. Let's just let it go. That one random person that hurt my feelings, or two or three, whatever it might be, it only works if I give it power to it. Like, that
Yep.
person means nothing to me, or those people mean nothing to me. So why am I letting it take up my space, time, and energy and power? And then you let it go, and then it almost like, and then just focus back on the positive, and then all the positivity comes back. So I
Yep.
realized, even if you think you're the most positive person ever, you can still be met with negativity. And then I learned a very, very valuable lesson the last week, which was I used to always deal with negativity with grace, where I would just be like, okay, hurt people, let it go.
Mhm.
They're sad and lonely, and this is how they feel some kind of power in their life, is trying to tear people up here down to their level. And now, if everyone's on my level, then I'm fine, I'm no longer cranky. And I used to deal with it with much more grace. And then when people started personally attacking my loved ones, then it's, part of the defender in me came out, which was like, you're not gonna just like tear down my love. Like, you can tear me down because I can handle it. And I know my loved ones can too, but it's just like that part of me came out where it's like, well, now I'm gonna get you back because that's not
Mm.
right. And then and then creates that negativity storm where it swirls, and then you're trying to get back at them, and then more people are
Mm.
like, "Ooh, time for me to use my superpower. I love being a crotch, so now I'm gonna start piling in on it," and then it just becomes a cesspool of negative energy, and just being able to let it go. These people don't matter. There's always going to be people that don't agree with you, respect you, appreciate you, and those
Yeah.
people don't matter. And then you got to just refocus on all the people that do support you and do cheer you on and do encourage you. And that's where it comes back to our intention. Take the time to show gratitude for those who contributed to your well-being and survival. Put your gratitude on them. Quit dwelling on the three or four people that are just trying to tear you down, and lean into the 5, 10, 15, 20 of the good vibe people, and you'll
Mm.
watch how quickly they don't feel a space, like they don't feel like that's a space anymore for them to allow to be negative, because you're not harboring it anymore.
So let me throw one question at you, that because I think for me sometimes, as I discovered some of that, like, why am I keeping the negativity when someone has something to say, etc.? Do you think that when somebody or a few people come at you like that, you're surprised because you're not that person? You don't treat people that way. And so is it kind of like, oh, where did that come from? Why would you say something like that? I think sometimes if the surprise or the little shock of it can keep us there a little bit, and then we end up in that defense mode. Like, do you think it
Oh
throws you
no,
off guard?
you hit the nail on the head there. Like, it is a shock, because I'm sure you and I could
Mm.
both agree we have absolutely no power within us to like be nasty to people. Like,
Right.
when I was even saying get them back, I wasn't even answering them and being nasty back. I just went even above them. Like, one lady who was sending nasty messages on her Facebook, she had her workplace, which was a personal care home. So instead of, messaging this lady back, like, how dare you send such rude messages, I just printed out the nasty thing she said, and I spoke with her executive director and sent her conversation, and they can deal with it how they wish. As someone who did work in long-term care, my ethics where like pouring out of me because I'm like, if this lady is
Yeah.
going to be nasty online where she feels there's no repercussions, she's going to be nasty to older adults who are extremely vulnerable and can't stand up for themselves. So, I didn't reciprocate the energy. I just kind of tattletaled, I guess. But like I don't have an inch of it in me to be a nasty, mean, rude person and just take low blows. It's not in my blood. So when people are behaving that way, and then in my head, like that's also another thing. I've built up this thing in my head where it's like, okay, I spent 8 years working with the older adult population, taking care of them, serving on them, trying to bring joy to their life. And then I moved on from that to run across Canada to raise money for cancer research. Now I'm just having a nice little humble family. We live a very nice humble life. Like we
Yep.
don't even have a kitchen. We cook on the stool in our room on a little
Yeah.
like electrical fryer. So it's just like to me it's like I've done nothing to warrant any of that negative behavior. So it
Mhm.
baffles me even more. It's like sure if you're just like a jerk, yeah, but like I haven't been a jerk to anyone, and I feel like I'm trying so much to like just be good for the world. And then when you just that doesn't seem to be enough for some people, and then it just like it hits you by surprise. It's like, well, what more do I need to do for you to not be a rude, condescending,
Mm.
like crotch? And then I think it comes to there's not anything more you can do. Just some people are wired that way and they're gonna treat everyone that
Mhm.
way. And sometimes you're in their crosshairs, their
Yep.
crossfire. And that's when you just let it go. Don't give it any attention because that's what they want. They're shooting all these bullets at as many people as they
Mhm.
can. They're just hoping for that one person who will be like, "How dare you say that to me?" And they're like, "Ha, ha,
Yeah.
ha, got him now." And then they start their little battle where
Mhm.
they're, they that's what I like to run. That's what makes me happy and fill my time. And some people want to argue. Like that's where they
Yeah.
feel like they're involved and they have a purpose and time flies when they're like, this one's gonna really hit deep. And
Yeah.
then they wait for their answer back. And then if you just let it go, don't even pay it any mind, they'll drift off and shoot it at the next person. And
Yep.
maybe that person might not handle it with as much grace. And then they get the battle they're looking for.
Mhm.
But yeah, just to kind of bring it right back to what you were saying, it's a shock because you don't even consider doing that like in your own head. If anything, I'm going
Mhm.
through and I'll be scrolling through on TikTok too, and I see lives where this one guy, Geo Cobra, he was 600 pounds and he's on a weight loss journey.
Yeah.
And
It's great. Yeah.
I'll go in there, I'll be like, oh, right on, man. You're doing so good. Like, keep it up. Like, I can already tell you look so good already. And then
Yeah.
of course you'll have people scrolling by and be like, you're a POS, like what are you even trying to do? Go die. And
Yeah.
it's well, what the heck?
Yeah. And it's yeah, replying to it because of that surprise. And then like you touched on it when you said, well, what more do I have to do? That because that's what you're putting out there and that's your thought and that's what you're radiating. It is easy to have to think that. Well, what else do I have to do? And what but it is a little bit, it's not that you're not fearful, but it is the most popular one I think is fear into love, but you can do anything into love, even anger, things like that. So you sort of reconcile with it in your head. You did those steps, but because of that positivity that you radiate and stuff, and we think that other people should be like that too, and then that surprise comes in, it's easy for that defense mode to sort of creep up, but just not giving it that energy because again, the more attention we give anything, the bigger it gets. And you acknowledge that with the, well, if I say that negativity is just going to keep breeding more negativity.
And drama creates drama, and then
Yes.
positivity creates positivity. And
Yeah.
so it's fascinating to see how much power just this stuff can hold as much as you think you're like practicing and
Mm,
cultivating
mm,
calmness and peace of mind and goodness.
yeah.
It's a forever practice.
Yeah, and you have a moment, and that's totally fine. And it can be really hard to rise above. It really can be. Empathy is such a big thing, and there's lots of levels under that umbrella. But we are really tempted to sort of judge other people and circumstances when there's fear. And practicing empathy in those times is hard. You sort of have to have the courage to put love towards them or the situation, even though you don't want to, but you want to put out the energy to them that you would want to get back, even though they are coming at you with not the energy you would give them.
Hmm.
So that empathy, it is it's really hard, but that also leaves room for love. Um, Even though it takes a lot, it does. That one takes so much practice, but
It
you
does.
know,
And two things I wanted to touch on. One, you had just said that's actually a word that was kind of bouncing in my head when you were just talking there was empathy. Like,
yeah.
I think most of the people watching today are probably all extremely very empathetic people. And
Mhm.
what happens to us as empathetic people is that we go through life thinking of other people, putting ourselves in their shoes constantly, and actually feeling the emotions of other people. And then, well, like they're clearly hurt, so let's not add to that hurt. Or, we see
Mhm.
everyone as an individual. And there's just people out there with zero empathy and zero social awareness. And
Mm.
um, that's where you had said the other thing where maybe you could correct me here where we cling on. You had just said it there. I should have wrote it down.
When
Let,
I was talking about empathy,
yeah, and like when someone like does something you not like let it go, but you had said it in a different way, like kind of let it go in a different way there.
yeah, just when we sort of judge, we're sort of tempted to judge other people when we're in that fearful spot, but you kind of have to have the courage to, just sort of stop and mirror the love back. Like you're not necessarily, it is a process of letting it go, I guess, but you just, not even giving it the attention. You just, okay, I'm gonna have some courage here and just project my love back at this and let it be.
Comes down to another really cool emotion. I love emotions and feelings because there's so many of them. We can feel them, we know they're true, and this one's
Yeah.
pride. So when you're an empathetic person and you're just not being treated right, it takes a hit at our pride because it's like we should stand up for ourselves. My pride is hurt. Like it's prideful to stand up for yourself. And we don't want our pride to get a hit at. For some reason, pride is so innately in us to be proud or I don't think proud and pride are the same thing, are they?
Um, well, yes. Yeah, I mean, I think so. And all of that is true, 100%. And all of that, again, if your pride is hurt or if you're surprised, whatever reaction you have to it, it might not necessarily be fear, but there may be a tiny level under it because when your pride is hurt, there is that level of hurt, and we don't want to be hurt. And so then our back goes up. And so it does tie in a little bit to the fear and to love as well. And so it's just that hard practice of, okay, my pride has taken a hit, but we're going to step back, and how important is this comment going to be to me in 10 years? Does this actually affect who I am? Does this? Okay, so just deal with the tiny bit of hurt or whatever's maybe taken the hit, and just mirroring back that empathy, that showing the love anyway is super hard. It's so
It
hard.
is. I think it's like that's probably one of the hardest things as a human being is like
Uh,
this whole phenomenon of like our pride and just being able to let go and like if our pride is hit, does it matter? What's the real scale here? No one, it only matters to us. And why does it matter to us? I don't know. Like it shouldn't.
right, and that answer will be different for everybody. You got to reach down under your own rubble to figure those ones out. But it is just, and that's I think another reason for the podcast is the more we can understand ourselves and our emotions, it makes when things like this happen maybe a little smoother because we've already done a hair of the work. We're always going to come up against stuff, always. But if we sort of start doing some of this work, yeah, when things like this happen, we might
Oh,
be a bit prepared. Our backpack has a little bit in it.
yeah, way to tie that in, Wendy, because that's the entire point of this podcast. Maybe now, like I was saying, a lot of us are probably very empathetic people just trying to understand our own feelings and emotions because we feel way more than most and just trying to make sense of
Yeah.
it all. And we get hurt more and we love harder. And there's just everything's a bigger explosion of emotions. And
Yep.
so now let's say, you know, because I think what a lot of people deal with is just negativity in their life, and it's hard to it is hard to separate from it because there's so much of it out there, and it could be within your own family or,
Hmm.
a brother or a sister or a mother or a father, whoever it is, and then you don't want to let go of that person because they're your blood and your family, but then like it's so hard. But then maybe now, let's say someone is casting that negativity spell on you, and you might realize, well, if that person just tried to tear me down, wait, the thing that I'm feeling inside is actually my pride is being hurt. Now I can recognize that. Does it matter that my pride is hurt right now? Who does this matter to? Nobody but me. And why does it matter to me? I don't know. It's just because it's a feeling inside of me and I'm just trying to feel it. But
Yep.
once you can recognize, be like, okay, my pride is hurt. Does it matter? No. The sun's gonna rise tomorrow. Everything's gonna be okay. And then you can move on. And it's a very hard practice not to
Yep.
retaliate, but it's so very much rewarding when you
Yeah.
stop retaliating because you actually leave so much more room for those good emotions and the good things we're talking about.
Exactly. And just to yes and you, I don't want to say but.
No,
So
and or but me.
yeah, when you say, does it really matter what the pride being hurt? It it to validate it, allow yourself to, yeah, this does matter to me for whatever reason. Still validate it because it does matter. And then, but then once you sort of see why or whatever, or same with the fear, right? Turning that fear into love. When you start to accept why it's that way and whatnot, then you can separate the connection to it. You don't have to feel as charged up by it. You're just like, oh well, that's why. Well, that's okay. You're giving yourself love about it, and it's easier to let it go. But
Oh,
it definitely accept it because the more we fight, well, we really shouldn't. Why am I that way? The more you fight that, it's just going to grow, right? And then it'll bug you even more. So, yeah, let yourself feel it. And then,
yes. I just wrote that down in capitals. Just feel it. You don't need to act on it. But at the end of the day, like, let's say that
yes,
motion comes in, feel it,
yeah,
understand it,
yeah,
and let it go. But yeah, totally. You got to feel your emotions. Or if you don't feel your emotions and just suppress and push everything down, you're going to end up with so much trauma and pain and hurt. And it's going to come out in even physical pain. Like,
yeah.
yeah. So just feel
And
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because and that's part of also with the fear is you're those few little tips I said when you're accepting it and feeling it and figuring out, because you can do that with anything. I know that's our topic, the fear to love, but just to keep going with your example, you might, if you sat there with it and you're like, why is my pride hurt? You might, word might come in, a memory, you might feel it somewhere in your body. So it's just getting to know your connection to your own emotions and why they do come up for a reason. But I think a lot of the times, especially if it's an angry emotion, I mean, if we could ever have famous people on here, oh man, I could listen to Alanis Morissette talk about anger for so long. So many people attach such a negative thing to anger and they avoid it because it's just supposed to be such a bad thing. We really need to get to know. our emotions and become okay with them and where they're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's interesting you said that about anger. So obviously you don't want to put your anger out on other people. That's just like
Right.
counterproductive. But what would you do then if you're just someone who finds yourself angry at very often? Like
Mm.
what would you do about that? Because I know it's not a bad emotion, but you don't want to live in a perpetual state of anger.
Well, the first thing is the root why, if you're all the time, that was the way I answered that was because you said
Mm,
if you find yourself angry all the time, you didn't just wake up on the wrong side of the bed. If this is all the time, like a phase, like if you weren't born that way, but you're like, man, these past 8 months, I have just been on fire. Well, that isn't, you're not normally. So why?
I
Digging
love that.
down to the root of the why, you have to figure out why first, because you can band-aid it and whatever, eat your anger away or shop it
Mhm.
away or whatever, but it's still brewing. You need to figure out why you're so angry all the time. There's something.
Oh, you're so good, Wendy. That's so true. Like yeah, I'm not someone who's carrying too much anger, so I was just thinking there, but yeah, like some of us might be angry at, our mom from your childhood and you never let that go, or your um let's say you
Yeah.
have a father who abandoned you. Some people just can't let go of that. And then
Mm,
instead of like being the opposite, they, victimize themselves and become it. So there's so
yes.
many deep-rooted issues why some people could be holding on to anger, which you and I talking to each other and to the audience, like we don't know each and everyone's individual situations, but that's so
Right.
true. Like I didn't even think about that. Digging into what is making me so angry. Is it the fact that I'm in constant pain, or is it the fact that my relationships aren't going how I want them to? Did this
Mm,
person blindside me and I feel backstabbed? Whatever it might be, gotta like
yeah.
get to the root of it and then work through why it's making you so angry and find ways to just let it go.
Yeah, and if you, oh, another thing is not just what might be under all that why. If we don't process a lot of stuff and just suppress it, yeah, that is going to come out in either depression or anger or, you know, extra happiness or just whatever it is. So that could also be things that are, haven't been processed. And if it's big things that make us angry, well, then that's just what you, you know, that's going to come out in anger. We have to make sure we process everything. Yeah. But again, I know way easier said than done, and there's a lot to process. And sometimes there's new stuff coming at you every day when you already have a pile to process. But if
Mm.
you find something's coming up more often, start there.
Gosh, you're quite the oracle, Wendy. I love it.
And then really quick, let's just say, I know you mentioned it, and I think it's important. We're almost out of the winter, you guys. I know it can be a little seasonal blues. It's February. We're almost out of the winter. So, everybody just remind yourselves that, when you hear the birds a little more often, I've noticed it's a light out a little longer. It's almost flip-flop weather. Out in the fresh air, even if it's for just 5 minutes when the sun's shining, do it. Just everybody have like patience and grace with yourself. We're almost to spring.
Oh gosh, I cannot wait for summer. You can definitely feel the sun's getting a little hotter, snow's
Yep.
starting to melt. It's on the horizon. It's every winter, just they feel longer and longer and
Yep.
it takes so much out of you because I mean
Mm,
just vitamin D, gosh, it's the miracle vitamin, and the lack of it will definitely drive people into insanity.
yeah. Yeah, go into the sun, even if it's just like me and my friend always tease each other, or even back in the day when you're picking up kids after school and you're sitting there waiting. If like the sun is beaming in the car, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna curl up like a kitty. I'm in a sunbeam. I'm good. Like it just the warmth, it feels good. we're almost out of all of that. It's gonna be good. So everybody just be patient with yourselves.
That's why I always say the best things in life are free. Like I feel like most of us could probably think to like some of the best times in our lives. We were just sitting somewhere with a couple of our favorite people, sun's
Hmm.
beaming down on us. Maybe there's some music playing. None of that
Yeah,
costs money yet, by the way. And you're
right.
laughing and there's just no responsibilities or worries in the world, or at least it feels like it in that moment.
Yes.
And yeah, and those days are coming, everyone. So
Yeah,
hang
because
on.
you've found a way to bring joy into the moment. That's why. Yes.
Yeah, hang on tight. We're almost there. If you think about it, on March 6th, 2024 will be the exact year date where I left St. John's, Newfoundland to walk across Canada. And now thinking back, I wasn't actually in Canada on February the 20th. So if I was in
Oh,
Canada, I might have been like, is March 6th really a good idea to start this? Because it's still
yeah.
so darn cold and snowy. But
Hmm.
everything works out for the reasons. But if I'm t taking March 6th as an example date when things, I felt genuinely pretty warm out when I was doing my journey. So that's kind of the date I'm looking for. March 6th. It's gotta be better weather by then.
That's right. We're almost there. Yeah. Wow. A year goes by so fast, doesn't it?
It really does. So, I mean, we've kind of been talking about fear to love, how negativity harbors negativity, and on the flip side, positivity harbors positivity. And it's so fragile. It's so fragile because one second, we think we're doing so good, and then something negative happens, and we're like, okay, I'm just gonna vent and dwell on this for a bit, and then it just spirals out of control, and then we're in this rut and feeling good. So maybe what one homework I can do, we could try and give you guys today. Easier said than done, but whatever, if you are, dwelling or feeling sorry for yourself or hanging on to these very negative emotions, I'll do it with you guys. Maybe Wendy can do it too. Let's
Yep.
just give ourselves permission to just restart. Let's give ourselves permission to just be like, you know what? I'm hanging on to all of this trauma and negativity and dwelling, and I just hanging on. Let's give ourselves permission. We'll all do it together where it just doesn't feel like, well, I can't do this alone. We'll all do this together. Let's just,
Yep.
easier said than done, but forget the negative and let's try until next Tuesday to just focus on the positive. Don't even give any power, any attention to that negativity. And when stuff like that tries to come awry, then try and find the things that bring you the joy and
Yes.
then just do that. And then you'll probably find after an hour, whether that's going for a walk or spending time with a loved one or crochet, knitting, watching Netflix, do that for an hour.
Yeah.
Don't try and give too much power to that negativity. Let's just let it all go and let's start fresh. This is a fresh start to just be like, you know what? Whoever I was before, maybe I was a bit negative or maybe whatever, I'm holding on some emotions. Let's just all start here and be like, this is our clean slate. Let's just
Yep.
put positivity into the world. And along the way this week, you might be met with some pushback or you might be met with some bad news or whatever it is. Don't suppress it, feel it, but then let it go and keep putting positivity into the world. And hopefully by next week, we will have our first guest, Amber. But I would love to hear if anyone in the comments who listened this far, if you will take the challenge with us, where
Yeah.
let's just try and leave all our worries and our sorrow behind, and let's just take on this week with just optimism, positivity, and just pure light and illumination into this world. And I would love to know next week if some of you guys ran into some pitfalls along the way and it kind of knocked
Yeah.
you off the wagon, or
Yep.
if you actually were met with some tricky moments and you thought back to, wait a minute, this is just my pride being hurt. Do I really need
Mhm.
to retaliate and keep the cycle going? So let us know if you used any of these tools,
Yeah.
and let's see if next week, well, maybe 2 weeks from now, because next week I want to give all our attention to Amber. But
Yes.
2 weeks from now, Wendy, when we sit back down here again on Tuesday morning,
Yeah.
let's see if we've been able to carry this message we're putting out to the world. We got to practice what we preach and
That's
just
right.
stuck to the positives as much as we want to get dragged in and retaliate. Let's just try our best not to feel the hurt. Just take the blow and then
Yeah.
come back stronger and just leave the weak, bad people behind you and come back stronger.
Exactly. And whatever level people want to share, if you've encountered that this week and you want to comment on this, yeah, however much you want to say or not at all, it's always good to hear. And so you're not alone either when people share, right? So yeah, that's great homework. I love that. Um, it's putting that intention,
Yes,
really intention forward to put that positivity out there and, not bring on the negativity. Love it. Good homework. I love
good
homework.
homework. Our intention also from taking the time to show gratitude for your loved ones, the intention is to just leave the bad in the past, and this is our this is like us telling you, giving you permission that none of the stuff in your past defines you. This very moment and everything going forward is what defines you. So never too late to recreate yourself. It's never too late to try something new, a new emotion or a new feeling or some new positive vibes you want to put into the world. And yeah, let us know if
Yeah.
you run into any pitfalls or if the tools worked and how you're doing. I know my mother, she watches, hey mom, she writes down all these in notes, and yeah, I remember having a conversation with her maybe a couple years back, and it's kind of that feeling where my mom, such an amazing, kind, empathetic, caring individual, but I think she can kind of get dragged into the you get hit once and then it dwells on you and then it goes on. And
Mhm.
I know for a fact my mom sometimes be like, hey, this is my clean slate, I'm gonna take this with positivity, brand new, we got this. And so
Love
yeah,
it.
just she was just a great example for how you can just
Mm.
one day wake up and be like, you know what? I'm going to be positive, optimistic, put joy into the world. I'm going to compliment the cashier,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to be the best version of myself. And that can last a week, a month, a year. And
Yeah.
then sometimes we do get knocked back down and kind of where, forget that we can be those people, those positive, amazing people.
Yes. Exactly. Because you're correct. Our past doesn't define us. It, but it does, have to do with who's standing in front of you today, right in the mirror. But you have the opportunity, that clean slate. Every day is kind of a clean slate. So maybe you've got a lot to work on as that you brought from the past. But as you're doing that, every day is a little bit of that clean slate, and you have the choice to choose your thoughts like you choose your clothes in the morning.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it's, yeah,
that.
work on that and putting that positivity. I look forward to hear if anybody has shares in the comments. And yes, you and me will hand in our homework in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and don't be too hard on yourself, guys. Truthfully, like we're here just talking about this stuff. I mean, I'm sure Wendy and I are both equally as guilty to it, Like I'm just as guilty. I've dwelled on things and but it's just about being like I'm the big I always think too, I said it earlier, but in 500 million years from now, no one's gonna know my name. No one's gonna know anything I did. Like as much as we want to think our time here matters, it doesn't. Maybe you might have a disagreement with that, but I just think if we're here for, let's say we get 80 to 100 years, just try to put as much good, don't dwell on the bad, create the best experiences with your loved ones, laugh,
Yeah.
enjoy the fresh air, and yeah, I mean, life's too short to not
Yeah.
be appreciative and grateful.
I think, I mean, I see what you're saying and I agree. I also think though that the time it does matter at the time, like what you're creating for yourself every day. But what you're saying, like way down the line, is this gonna matter? I see what you're saying there, no, but making your everyday matter and count, like making the best of your time here, you know,
Yeah, maybe
of
I'm getting
course.
way too off the deep ends for like our closing thoughts. But yeah, just you
You're
guys do, maybe I should clarify, you guys do matter. Your feelings matter, they're validated. But just part of like my, I guess, like hippie brain where it's just like,
hmm,
yeah, like I don't know, we get one chance. Am I really gonna, you know, live on the anxieties and the fear? Or am I just gonna accept that life throws all kinds of challenges, anxieties, whatever it is
absolutely.
at you? And it is what it is. If someone's gonna hurt your feelings or, put a roadblock in your life, yeah, doesn't matter. If it won't matter 500 years from now,
That's right. That's right. And I agree with that. Totally see what you're saying. 100%. You're right. It's, we do only get the one chance. So what are we doing? You got to decide what to do with that every
right? Like
day.
I'm just thinking
Love it.
like for me, I c- that like that's why I'm kind of a very, I guess, kind of like a wanderer in life.
Mm,
That's why the quote comes, not all wanderers are lost,
mm,
because I'm a wanderer. I'm just always wandering like the universe in a way and the energies and all that comes along with it.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't even know where I'm going anymore, Wendy.
that's all right. Quick fun side note. I had this keychain. I'm not even sure where I got it from. I'm just like remembering this. When I was younger, I had a keychain and it like told you what your name meant. And it was Wendy the Wanderer.
Love that.
We're gonna be wanderers.
We're wanderers, just, and I think there's a lot of us out there that feel like we are. And then I feel like, honestly, if we're gonna get into it, like our primal version of ourselves want to wander. And
Yeah,
then society slowly strips us of everything that's actually like truthfully makes us human beings. And so it's hard to like reconnect and refine what makes us humans and creates that serotonin and gives you that good energy.
because there's a lot of distractions. When you say life, that's one way to put it. All these distractions, and they happen because you grow up and now you do have to do this and that, and you don't have all this time, and maybe you do have to work and pay bills, and all these distractions, for sure make a difference. And you just have to keep reminding yourselves, like you said, you just have to keep reconnecting with those things that really matter. It's okay to lose sight once in a while because we all do. Just bring it back. Just keep bringing it back.
Right. Always be and comes back to just gratitude. Like a lot of us, like, we just take for granted the things we have, even our jobs that put roofs over our heads. Like there's so many people that don't have a house or a job or
Yeah.
food to feed themselves, and I hate saying this because like when I used to go to work, I mean a lot of the days, well, I still go to work just in a different way. Like not a my
Yeah.
work is the things I do out of my computer now and I can kind of do it from anywhere. But when I worked at the care home, some days you don't want to go. It's like, this is
Mhm.
what I do every single day. But then it's like reframing that to the privilege. Like I get to do this, get to
Yes.
go take care of these people, and I get to make them happy, and I get to have all their families be so proud and grateful I'm there. And it's just that realizing the privilege we
Yeah.
have. But one last
You
side
changed.
note, and then we can end it.
Yeah,
But
you changed the script. I wanted to just real
yeah, go
quick. You
for it.
changed the script, and that's what helped you in the reframe. Love it. Okay, one last go. Sorry.
No, no, sorry. I'm just, there's just like so many of these things, it's hard to put into a concise
I
form
know.
when we're just kind of like talking out loud and brainstorming.
Yeah,
But
we're mind mapping everywhere.
right, and then we're trying to pull things back in. Um, oh, we got a customer. Thing I want to say is where I was kind of talking about how who we are as primal humans, and then society slowly strips that all away from us.
Yeah.
So cool to see that in a lot of our, oh, sorry guys. I am in the yarn store, and so people come in and need to shop. I can touch on it quick.
Yeah.
I've seen documentaries of kind of African tribes who they don't have the luxuries and the comforts we have. You know, they're
Right.
kind of in like like cloth
Yeah.
underwears, no clothes, but they're like the happiest people. So why is that with literally nothing besides like a bow and arrow and barely enough to eat? Their
Yeah.
serotonin and happiness and gratitude level is way beyond ours in our comfort society. It's very interesting. And I
Oh,
think
that all that stuff is so wild to like read about and learn about. Like once you start opening all those doors, like yeah, it's crazy. And I think the thing that's really neat about sometimes blurting out and just the mind mapping and stuff that sometimes we end up doing, if like I always say to you guys, if I've mentioned or Jax has mentioned something, but we just touched quick, put it in the comment, and then if that becomes its own episode, because there's just so much and we'll never touch on it all, but it's great. I think both of us just love to share this, and
hmm,
yeah.
that's the thing. I don't think either of us think we have the answers. What we're doing is
Exactly.
mind mapping to each other and trying to find the truth in it all.
And what worked for us maybe, or someone we know, or sometimes you just hear something you didn't know. Give it a go.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we're doing, throwing out a million things and just hoping there's that one nugget you can pull.
That's right. Grab it on the way by. You got her.
Awesome. Well, Wendy, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, we will see you next week.
We'll see you guys next week with our Amber Schramm interview. Love you guys.